This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, welcome everyone. Agun Shabbos. As we prepare for Parshas Shemos, we're going to talk about a topic which is certainly on my mind and I find very interesting. Maybe you will also. Pasuk says, "Vayamas Yosef v'chol echav v'chol hadarahu." And Yosef died, and his brothers died, and the whole generation. So says the Gemara in Bracha and Daf Nun Hey Amud Beis. V'amar Rabbi Yehuda shloisha dvarim mekatzrim yamav u'shnaisav shel adam. Three things shorten the lifespan of man. Mi shenoisim le'sefer Torah likrois ve'enai karei. If they offer you a sefer Torah to read from and the person refrains. Kais shel bracha levarech ve'enai mevarech. If they say, why don't you lead the benching? And you say, no thank you. V'hamani gatzmoi b'Rabanus. And someone who acts as a Rav. Says the Gemara, how do we know? And the Gemara says, "V'hamana gatzmei Rabanus, the Amar Reb Chama bar Chanina mibnei ma meis Yosef koidem la'achav." Why did Yosef die before his brothers? Says the Gemara, mibnei shehina gatzmei b'Rabanus, because he conducted himself b'Rabanus. How do we know Yosef died before his brothers? Rashi says, Yosef meis Lechav, d'chsev vayamas Yosef v'chol echav. It didn't say vayamas b'nei Yaakov, it says vayamas Yosef v'chol echav. So we see from here that Yosef died first. Why did he die first? Because he was acting b'Rabanus. So from here the expression goes, Rabanus is not a good profession for a nice Jewish boy. Right? Because the Gemara criticizes Yosef that he died first because Shehina Gatzmei b'Rabanus. In fact, the Gemara says in Psachim, Adaf Pei Zayin Amud Beis, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Oy loy la l'Rabanus. Woe to Rabanus, shemekaberes es baled, buries those who take it upon themselves.
He was a king.
Says the Gemara in Pirkei, says the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, Shmaya v'Avtalyon kiblu mehem. Shmaya and Avtalyon accepted from the earlier Zugos. Shmaya Omer. Shmaya says, Ehoy v'samlacha, love work. Love to be a plumber, an electrician, a shoemaker, a tailor, a doctor, a lawyer. These are all accountant. These are all good things. But what should you hate? Usnas harabanos. Hate Rabanos. Don't go into that profession.
Maybe you're talking to the Balabat.
Now, some people think it means hate the Rabbanim. No, that's not what it says. Snas harabanos. Hate the Rabbanos. In other words, it's giving career recommendation. It's saying, well, try working for a living, try some gainful employment, but don't go into the Rabbanos. In fact, it says in the Sefer Shem HaGedolim of the Chida, Chaim Yosef David Azulai, in his entry on Rav Yaakov Emden. Yaakov Emden, we know, one of the all-time great Achronim. Some Sofer said about him he was a Navi. Marenu Rab Yaakov ben Hagoyin Marenu Rab Tzvi. Right? That's why he is called Yavitz, Yaakov ben Tzvi, Hamaforsam b'Tshuvaisav, who is well acclaimed in his responsa, u'b'chachmasai, u'b'bechurusai hayarav v'kal kodesh Emden. When he was a young man, he was a Rav in the city of Emden, Ezashan, for a couple of years. V'yachar kach nestalik. But then, somehow, it came to an end. And he never wanted to be a rabbi again. And he said that every day he would say, Baruch Sani Aved. Blessed is God that he did not make me an Eved with an Aleph. Eved standing for Av Bezdin. In the morning, everybody makes the bracha Shalai Sani Aved. He would also make that bracha. But he would make the bracha, thank God I'm not a rabbi. He died at 78 years old because Baruch Hashem, he gave up the Rabbanus. He lived a long life.
So the Rabbanus didn't shorten his life.
Maybe he would have lived longer. What could he do,
Longer.
Well, how does the Chida know that Rabbi Yaakov Emden would say, what does the Chida even mean? He would say, Baruch Shalai Asani Aved. So actually in the Tshuvas of Rabbi Yaakov Emden, he says that every day he would make two brachas that nobody else made. The first bracha is the above mentioned, and he also made another bracha. Listen to what it says. In the Shelas Yavitz of Rabbi Yaakov Emden, Af imani choysech atzmi min adin b'chol ha'efshar. I, by the way, says Yavitz, I refrain from din as much as possible. Some Rabbanim, they love when you ask them shilas. No, Rabbi Emden said, I don't know. I like that. I hold to that. I don't know. Why should the einish be on me? Find a different rabbi who wants to take the punishment on him. I don't make myself available to people. To tell them halacha. I'm not being paid for it, so why should I do it? I make a bracha every single day of my life. Thank God I'm not an Bezdin. And you know what other bracha I make? Baruch shepatrani me'onshor shalazeh. Thank goodness that I am exempt from the einish of a kehillah. V'lo yashivu li yasham. I don't have any guilt. V'afilu b'hayra kalo legasli bi. People ask me what bracha to make on this. I don't tell them. V'ani doichesam abom elai. And I push them away. Sometimes when relatives press me, I can't refrain. I can't get it off my shoulders. But that is my governing principle. Baruch atah Hashem shelo yasani aved. Baruch shepatrani me'on shel shalazeh. If I don't take comments during most shiurim, I'm for sure not taking during this one. Okay. Says Reb Chaim Berlin. Reb Chaim Berlin was also one of the great Rabbanim. He was the son of the Netziv. Reb Chaim Berlin writes that this is in a history book called Doirois Ha'achroinim. Reb Chaim Berlin writes, Eskera Yamim Mikadem. I remember in the good old days, B'yosi Eved Avdos, when I was a slave of slaves. In other words, when I was a Rav. Ha'ir Biyalas Vatgrad. When I was a Rav of Biyalas Vatgrad. V'yom Ha'yisi Ma'atir Liyochi V'koini. And every day I would daven Ribbono Shel Olam, get me out of this place. Mi yichaneni chavshi me'avodasi. Could one day I be a free man? I have to please this guy, I have to please that guy. This guy loves Israel, that guy hates Israel. This guy loves this, that guy hates it. I can't please everybody, right? Hashoinim b'netiyas de'asem. This guy never says tachna. This guy holds you have to say tachna every day. This guy says tachna 3 times by the minyan. This guy holds you it's also. This guy says tachna by marav. What am I supposed to do with these people? Thanks to the God of my fathers. He heard the prayers of my heart. And now Baruch Hashem, and now I too could make the bracha of Rabbi Yaakov Emden. Baruch Hashem, that I'm no longer a rabbi. And now I could sit in the shul, and I don't have to deal with Yenum, and with this Mishaberach, and with that issue. Well, I don't have to be under anybody's oil other than Omachos Shamayim. I sit in my house, and I could serve Hashem. Yehi Shmoi Hagadol Mevarach La'olam Lo Me'omaya. Baruch Hashem, I'm not a rabbi anymore.
They make a living.
Wow.
Who supported them?
The Chassam Sofer writes that he had a childhood friend, and his childhood friend was somebody named Rav Mendel Lilig. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 line in the Shas Shuvas Chassam Sofer, Simukufnan Rav. V'hinei nehirna aluf nurai. What does nehirna mean? If I'm not mistaken, there's one Tosfos in Shas that
doesn't mean like I'm happy to say.
No.
No? Okay.
No. There's a Tosfos in Shas Masach the Tainis that says the word nehirna means, I remember, aluf neurai, the friend of my youth, Moreno Harav Mendel Lilig, Rav the Beis HaMedrash be Frankfurt. Siperli, he told me, Shahayahu Talmud Muvik Shel Hagoyna Agon Moreno Rav David Stroy's Katz. He was the Talmud Muvik of Rav David Stroy's Katz. Who is Rav David Stroy's Katz? Shahayav Bezim Kal Kodesh Piorda. Utchilasa Hayaroish Bezdin be Frankfurt the Main. Ukshenasa mi Pressburg. Or Frankfurt. V'darash be Frankfurt, be Basic Nesses. In other words, Rav David Stroy's Katz was Nesmanet to be a Rav. He was appointed a new position. And he had a big shaila. does a new Rav make a Shachianu? That's what we're going to talk about today. Does a new Rav make about Shachianu? So, Rav David destroys cats, did not know what to do. Did not know what to do. He didn't know what to do. So what was his name? His name was David. So he got up in front of the tzibor at his hachtara, and he said, "Vayivarech David es Hashem le'inei kol hakol. Vayomer David, Baruch atah Hashem." And then he finished, "Elokeinu melech ha'olam, shechianu v'kimanu v'gyanu lazman hazeh." In other words, he was masupik if he should make a shechianu. So the way he got out of it is he recited, "Vayivarech David es Hashem le'inei kol vayomer David, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu." And then he finished up the bracha. This way he did not violate bracha levatala if he should not be making a bracha. Haya Shemoi David, Hischel vayivarech David es Hashem, le'inei kol vayomer the Baruch Hashem, Elokeinu melech ha'olam, shechianu. Says some server, I can't remember, maybe it was Hatay v'Hametiv, I'm not sure. Why was he masupik? Why didn't he just get up and say Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech ha'olam shechianu? Nira shahaya hagoin masupik v'chosh lebracha levatala. He was worried about a bracha levatala.
He could get fired the next day.
Now, why would it be a bracha levatala? Why would it be a bracha levatala to make a shechianu? Well, the Chassam Sofer explains beforehand. Do you make a bracha when you start a mitzvah? Do you make a shechianu when you start a bracha? You say, well, it's a very happy occasion. What do you mean a happy occasion? Mitzvahs lav lahanois netnu. Mitzvahs are not given for hana. The Chassam Sofer quotes the Magen Avram earlier. Magen Avram says, let's say you buy a new car. You make a shechianu. And if it's for you and your wife, you make atay v'amitiv. Yeah. No, Goyim don't make it. You're right. Goyim, Jewish people make it. Avada.
Somebody passes the bar.
If let's
attorney, does he make a shechianu?
First of all, we're talking about rabbi. Then maybe a different time we'll talk about attorneys. Hopefully, I won't have to.
Rabbi, what did you do? You just became a new rabbi.
Well, so the shaila, let's say if you buy a new car, you make a shechianu. You buy a new refrigerator, you make a shechianu. If the refrigerator is going to be used by you and your wife, if you're going to let your wife use the refrigerator, then you make atay v'ametiv. If you buy a new computer, you probably make a shechianu. What about if you buy a new Sefer Torah? Says the Magen Avram, you don't make a shechianu. Aval asfarim chadashim einoi mevarech the mitzvahs lav lehanois nen. The mitzvahs are not given for anos, so you don't make a shechianu. However, the Radvaz says, Shas Shuvas Radvaz. We just quoted the Radvaz, right? Wednesday Shiur, right? We had the Radvaz on Chol of Yisrael, right? The Radvaz held that you could be mekel if there's no chash, right? We said the Sfardim in Amsterdam, they followed the Radvaz. Fine. The Radvaz says, Shaila mimeni, mahu daiti bekoina kelim chadashim itashmishe habayish einam lolavisha. Let's say you buy appliances. Do you make a shechianu? Says Rav Tshuva, daiti b'zeh kol kli shu samech b'y mimnei chashivusay. Any kli that you're happy about, loishna kli lavisha, a kli tashmishay, a svarim, kol shehu chashuv, anything which is chashuv v'samach b'y. So according to Ravaz, if you buy a new Shulchan Aruch, especially if you don't plan on using it, it's just going to look nice as a decoration in the house, then you can make a shechianu. So there's a machlokes between the Magen Avram and the Radvaz. Do you make a shechianu on chafetzim shal mitzvah? Says the Chassam Sofer. Why was Rav David Stroy's cats masupik if he should make a shechianu on becoming a Rav? Because it's a machlokes haposkim, just like it's a suffix. Whether you make a bracha on a new sefer, l'chayra, it would also be a suffix if you make a shechianu on a position of mitzvah relation. And therefore, he was masupik whether he should make a shechianu, and therefore the way he got out of it was, what did he do? He said, Vayivarech David, Hashem leinu kol vayom, David, Baruch Hashem lakeh. Fine.
Starting to make a bracha on their new wives, no? Shechianu on the mechuppah, no?
Well, why are we making on the top?
Because it's for the wife. When they get a new wife, to start to make a shechianu.
Okay, Rabbi Sai. But one thing we see is Rav David Stroy's cats was not sure if you can make a shechianu on a new Rabanus. What was his suffix? According to the Chassam Sofer, the suffix was, do you make a bracha on a chefza shel mitzvah or not? Do you say mitzvah is lav lehanos or do you not say mitzvah is lav lehanos? Presumably the Chassam Sofer held that a position as a rabbi is a position of a mitzvah. Somehow you could be, you could have the opportunity to enhance mitzvah observance, and therefore the shaila is you make a shechianu on such a davar chadash. However,
Is it a mitzvah to become a Rav then?
no, there's no mitzvah in the Torah to be a Rav.
Once you decide you want to become a Rav,
But it's a new opportunity in mitzvah connection. And just like if you buy new Sfarim, so you have something new that you're happy about. So here you have something new that you're happy about. What is it? A new position. What's a happiness? It's a happiness shel mitzvah.
so would you say the same thing about getting other jobs if you get a promotion?
Avada.
Or
If somebody,
raise or whatever?
if let's say somebody got a job as a doctor, as a lawyer, as an accountant, or any profession, certainly you would make a shechianu. Of course you would make a shechianu. There's no shaila. Because there, it's not a mitzvah, you don't have any chesaron of mitzvah slav lehonos netno. You wouldn't...
You may run into all kinds of problems and stress.
Okay.
It affects shalom bias, just like...
Usually it's the opposite. Usually the shalom bias is if you're sitting home, twiddling your thumb, right? Okay, so Rabbi Yisrael, according to Chassam Sofer, the shaila is whether you can make a shechianu. Do we say like the Magen Avraham, mitzvah slav lehonos netno, and you don't make the shechianu? Do you say like the Ravaz, you can make shechianu? There's a sefer, very amazing sefer, Oitzer Ploi Satira. It's been out, where he suggests another interpretation why Reb David Stroy's cats was masupik whether he should make a shechianu, and he says very simply, we started out the Shiur that Vayamas Yosef v'chol Echav v'chol Hadarhu, that Yosef died before his brothers because he was Nohag Atzmai b'Rabanus, and the Gemara Psachim says Oyla l'Rabanus shemekaberes es ba'aleha, and the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos usnas Rabanus. So that means that even though maybe on the one hand the Rabanus has a certain mitzvah quality to it, on the other hand it's fraught with great danger. And therefore, we know that if somebody is assuming something new that is dangerous, you do not make a shechianu. And maybe that's why he didn't want to make a shechianu. Because on the one hand, it was a new position and it was a simcha. On the other hand, it's a very dangerous thing to assume such a responsibility. So the Oitzer Ploi Satira suggests that is perhaps why he did not make a shechianu. Let's take a look quickly inside. He says, Ani az daiti nir lahoisef oy tamadarch efsher. Shezeh shaloi birach hagoyin Reb David Shtroi shechianu. And he was niskabel as the abezin of Piorda. Because Chazal say, oy la l'Rabbanu shemekaberes es ba'aleha. And it's mekatzvim yanav shel adam. And we have a klal gadol on the poskim that any mitzvah that has a hefsid, you don't make a shechianu. For example, the first shchita is a mitzvah, and yet the first time you do shchita, you don't make a shechianu. Why? Because it is harmful to one's health to shecht an animal the first time. It's a very difficult procedure. It could wrench your back, it could wrench your neck, it could wrench your arm. It's halacha l'maisa. The first time you do shchita, you can make a shechianu on the kisei adam, but not on the shchita. Or the Rabbeinu Banoach says on the Rambam, why don't you make shechianu on bir chametz? The answer is because, it's the first time you're doing it. On the other hand, you're sad that you're throwing your Cheerios. Oh, your Cheerios! What's going to be with my Cheerios? Right? The Baal says, why don't you make shechianu on Sfiras HaOmer? Because there's tsar. You're making that you're not actually being makar of the Omer. You're only being soifer the Omer. It's a mitzvah that has tsar. And the Shulchan Aruch says, you only make shechianu al yidei simcha. So a position, bishlama, if you become a plumber, it doesn't say anywhere in the Gemara that plumbing is makatzer yamav shel adam. But the Gemara does say that vayamas Yosef v'chol echav v'chol hadarahu, that it's a position that's fraught with danger. And therefore, it has a certain degree of sadness to it. Maybe you don't make a shechianu.
Yosef wasn't a rabbi, he was a ruler.
Who?
Rabanus
Okay.
Leader. Thank you.
So the question is, we have to understand what that means. What does it mean? What does it mean? Yosef was not Gatzmai b'Rabanas. He was giving them drushes. He said, now that you're in Mitzrayim, you're going to come to us every day, and you're going to sit and look at me and listen to my drushes. And they're sitting there, and Yosef is darshaning, Shabbos Hagadol, Shabbos Tshuva, Zayin Adar.
It was a famine.
Well, what's going on?
Maybe Rabbanus translated for Yosef as management, for senior management. You got a lot of stress, as opposed to being halacha, So he had Egypt to administer to. needed a CFO, he needed
Let's
production
see.
manager.
Let's see.
Well,
Well,
problems.
on the other hand, we find that you make a shechianu on a happy situation, even if there is a mixture of sadness to it. For example, if somebody's parent passes away, and they're left with a big Yerusha, so you make two brachas. You make dayin ha'emes, and you make ha'toiv ha'mitiv. You make dayin ha'emes on the patira, and you make toiv ha'mitiv on the Yerusha. Even though you would have preferred that the parents still be here and you don't have the Yerusha. But nevertheless, the patira is one inyan, and you make dayin ha'emes, and the Yerusha is another inyan, and you make ha'toiv ha'mitiv. So too, if when it comes to Rabanus, why don't you say there are certain dangers and that you could deal with separately, and there's a certain simcha, and for that you make a shechianu. So therefore, Reb David Stroy's cats was masupik whether he could make a bracha, and says maybe the reason he was masupik is not he wasn't masupik. Do we go like the Magen Avram or do we go like the Radvaz? He was masupik whether the Rabanus is sufficient simcha to make shechianu, or maybe it's so fraught with danger that it should be avoided.
How come you don't use the same scenario with the bris?
What about
As
it?
a death. Okay, but there is also a simcha.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt the father to have a bris.
So why? Because if the baby is in stars.
So the baby doesn't make a shechianu.
Okay, the father.
So the father's not b'tzar.
So why didn't they make shechianu?
Who?
The father. Why shouldn't he?
By Ashkenazim or by Sfardim?
No, Ashkenazi. It's fine if you do. But by Ashkenazi, because you say if the baby is in stars, so you
Well, the father has the tsar too, and the father sees the baby being wounded and sees blood drawn.
No, I don't think there's a different reason. There's a different reason why you don't make a shechin. There's a different reason. There's a separate reason. Separate reason. Okay, Rabbi Sai, it's hard to imagine that the reason why you don't make shechianu on Rabanus is because it's fraught with danger. Even though Rabbi Yaakov Emden did make the bracha every day of his life, Shalayas Ani Aved, that he was not an Abbezin. But Lamaisa, the overwhelming majority of the Rabbanim and Gedolei Yisrael throughout the generations, they did assume the responsibility, and they were not concerned with these Gemaras that Oiloi l'Rabbanu shemikabares as Balea, and they were not concerned with the Mishnah Pergayos that said Usnas HaRabbanos, and they were not concerned with the pasuk that we learn in this week's Parsha, Vayamas Yosef b'chol echav. So the question is, what are Chazal telling us when they say that Yosef was noyeg atzem b'Rabbanos? What does it mean, Oiloi l'Rabbanos shemikaberes es ba'aleha? What does it mean, Usna es ha'Rabbanos? What's that supposed to mean? Well, there's a letter in the introduction to the Oitzer Plois HaTorah from the Munkatcher Rebbe. And he says, he quotes the story of the Chassam Sofer, that Reb David Stroy's cats was masupik whether to make a shechianu based on the machlokes between the Magen Avram and the Radvaz, and he quotes the author of the Oitzer Plois HaTorah his rationale that maybe since it's fraught with danger, maybe you should not make a shechianu. But he says, if that's the case, then it should not even be a suffix. If taka oiloi l'Rabbanu shemikaberes es ba'aleh, so what was he masupik about? He shouldn't have made a bracha at all, not even a suffix. So the Munkatcher Rebbe wants to know in Ois Beis, if you're going to take all these divrei Chazal literally, it's a tema. Heich kiblu aleim rabbanon v'talmidain talmidain o rabbanos. How could rabbis throughout generations assume the responsibility? Why were they not concerned for Kitzur Yamav? Adarabba, most Rabbanim have Arichas Yamim, and they're not concerned and they're protected. So you say, well, maybe they did it because they were Moiser Nefesh for the sake of the Kehillah. You're right, Taka, it's a very dangerous thing. And Taka, it could be Mekatzar Yamav. But you got to do it for Klal Yisrael. He says, not Mistaber. Why would they do it? If Chazal say Sna Sarabanos, why would they do it? The answer is like this. Says the Munkatcher Rebbe, there are two elements of the Rabbanos. There's a certain element of authority and power and kavod, and then there's the work. You have to teach, you have to instruct, you have to make sure the mikvahs are running correctly. You have to make sure the shechita is correct. You have to make sure the eruv is correct. You have to make sure the halacha is being observed. There's, so to speak, the glory of the job and the nitty-gritty hard work of the job. When Chazal say snas Rabanus, doesn't mean hate the job. You got to do the job. What it means is, don't do the job because you want the covet of the job, you want the prestige, you want the honor, you want the glory. No, that's a very dangerous thing. If a person goes into it for the authority, for the power, for the so-called kavod, then the Gemara says in Brachas, Mivnei ma meis Yosef koidam la'echav nei shehinog atzmai b'Rabanos. Say Chazal, woe to the Rabanus. In other words, if somebody's only in it for the fringe benefits, which are very overrated, but if someone's only in it for the fringe benefits, that's a very dangerous thing. It's a very frightening thing.
Not always the case.
What? Well, that's fine. You're entitled to make money.
So same thing here. So
Yeah, but here it's a certain power that you're exerting over people, where people are putting themselves under your authority, and if you're doing it for that, that's what Chazal are very critical of. So it says the Munkach Rebbe, he quotes Rabbeinu Bechaye. Rabbeinu Bechaye says, when on the mission of Snas HaRabanos, it means hate the srara of the Rabanos. But if someone is Mekabel Rabanos, L'tikun Hadas, to be Melamed the halacha, to be Melamed the Derech HaYashar, then that's something you need to do. So he says that it could be that is why they were masakin a special Mishabech. Mishabech of Yahu. That what? We say, Kol Misha Oiskei v'tzarchei tzibur be'amunah Kodesh Baruch Hu Yishalem la'ischaram v'yasir lehem kol machala v'yirpa l'chol gufam. Says the Munkach Rebbe, who is more of an Oisek b'tzarchei tzibur than a Rav? So, and he says he could be that's why they were masakin it, because of all the dangers that are connected to this position. They were masakin, a special Mishaberach. He says like this. This has to be the pshat. Because what's pshat by Yosef? Yosef, like Yaakov asked, was the Rav of the brothers? Yosef was the Rav? You're telling me when the Shvatim went to Shul on Shabbos, Yosef was the one who stood up there. We don't find anywhere in Chazal Yosef was the Rav of the Shvatim. So what does it mean, Noag Atzmei b'Rabanos? The answer is he exerted authority. That, what?
He was the chief manager.
He was the Shiltain. He was the Shiltain. In fact, the Tashbeit says on the Mishnah, Snas Rabanos, that the Kavana is the Shiltain, the authority of the job. You need to hate the authority of the job. If you don't hate the authority of the job, if that part of the job is not despicable to you, wrong profession. But then, says the Munkach Rebbe, a different Perush, why Reb David Stroy's cats did not make a Shechianu when he took the job. You ready for this? He quotes Rabbi Yaakov Emden, and really the Chassam Sofer quotes Rabbi Yaakov Emden. Chassam Sofer, back in number 9, quotes Rabbi Yaakov Emden. Now, I looked it up in Rabbi Yaakov Emden. He doesn't quite say it like this, but this is how the Chassam Sofer says it over. V'ne'amanim, the version of the Chassam Sofer. Chassam Sofer number 9 says, on the 4th line, from Rabbi Yaakov Emden, V'kasav mi shenesalo l'Rabanos v'doresh b'rabim yivarech, you do make a shechianu im yoideya b'nafshay shekol kavanasa l'shem shamayim b'Rabanos shamayim. If you know that you're taking the job l'shem shamayim, then you can make a shechianu. If you're not taking the job l'shem shamayim, then what? You can't make shechianu. So ask the Munkach Rebbe on Rabbi Yaakov Emden. A very simple question. Where in Kol HaTorah Kula do we say you could only make a shechianu if you're doing it l'shem shamayim? If you do it l'shem shamayim, make a shechianu. If you don't do it l'shem shamayim, you don't make it. I have a question. Comes the Yom Tov of Pesach, and it's time for Kiddush. You make a shechianu. What if you say, I'm not really looking forward to Pesach l'shem shamayim. I'm looking forward to Pesach because I want a nice Afikomen present. So then we tell the kid, don't make a shechianu. Is there ever any shechianu that we say you could only make the shechianu if you're mechavin l'shem shamayim, and if you're not sure if you're doing it l'shem shamayim, you can't make a shechianu? Since when do we say that doing a mitzvah is dependent if you're doing l'shem shamayim? We say la'olam yasek adam v'torah mitzvahs afilu shalosh balashma. So why, when it comes to Shechianu, if someone's Nismana as a Rav, is only Shem Shamayim? Says the Munkat Rebbe, very simple. Because when it comes to Rabanus, it all depends on what the Kavanah of the Rav is. If the Kavanah of the Rav is, he's looking forward to the Kavod, then it is a bad thing for him. Oy lo l'Rabanus shemikaberes es ba'ala. You can't make a Shechianu. But if the person is doing l'shem shamayim, then it's a good thing. It's a wonderful thing. Ein l'cha davar gadol mizeh. Then you could make a Shechianu.
If it's a guy looking for he's going to make a Shechianu.
So it depends what his kavanah is. Rav David Stroy's cats, he was masupik. What was he masupik about? Mi loymar zachisi levi. Who could say their heart is pure? Who could ever say such a thing? Who could ever say they do something purely Shem Shemayim? So therefore, he didn't want to make the bracha b'Shem U'Malchus, because who would ever dare say they're doing something l'Shem Shemayim completely? So therefore, it says the Munkat Rebbe, maybe that's why Rav David Stroy's cats did not make the Shechianu b'Shem U'Malchus.
So if you take a job because you need parnas to support your family, is that not pure? Does that detract from the Shem Shemayim? I mean, you're doing it because you want to help and do what you have to do. But you need to be able to have parnasa to support your family. Does that detract and make you mesupik to say a Shechianu?
I think there's more covered involved with Rabanus, since it's something, a profession.
I think it depends like this.
Say the same thing if somebody gets a position as a director or a senior
No, I think
manager. I mean, the same issue.
if somebody is, it depends. If somebody is taking the job, the Shem Shamayim. Elamai, look, he's taking the job of Shem Shamayim, he's supposed to support his family, so the fact that he's getting a salary from it, mat toivu manom, it's an added perk. That's fine. And even if a person is doing it only for the money, I don't think you apply these critique of Chazal, oy lo l'Rabanus shemekaber says bala. Everybody needs to make we're talking about somebody who takes the job for the covet of the job. That's the bad part about the job. Somebody who's doing it to be a shilta, over other people. Someone who's doing it to rule over other people. That's frowned upon. So therefore, says the Munkat Rebbe, he says on the second column, Fizeh yesh lavar b'pshitus yoiser maho yaseker shalgan Rav David Strois. Mivar Shechianu al Rabanus. Ki pachod shebeshas kabbalas Rabanus ein adam yodeim yamid b'nisayon. Who could say they're going to be Oymid ben Isayon? Maybe they're going to get used to the cover, they're going to like it. Listen to Esasrara, and therefore, he quotes Rabbi Yaakov Emden. Rabbi Yaakov Emden says, Mish and Esa'ala l'Rabanos v'dorish b'Rabbi shemeka shechianu im yoidea b'nafsha shekol kavanose l'shem shamayim. L'fi zeh yesh loimer shezeh atzmai haya sveiker shel hagoyin. Since when is shechianu dependent on l'shem shamayim? The answer is, when it comes to Rabanos, if you're not mecham l'shem shamayim and you're mecham l'shem srara, then it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. It's not a happy occasion.
So if David wasn't sure about himself, that's why he was mesupik, and that's why he said the right. David.
Right.
I would say that 99% of human beings who would be put in that position have to have the same suffix.
Avada. Look.
It would be impossible.
Well, most people are not that introspective.
Well, okay.
You shouldn't say the bracha without saying something else to avoid the suffix.
That's the Munkat Rebbe's take on it, okay? So I don't know if that's halach l'maisa, but again, we're not saying pshat in Maimer Chazal. We're saying pshat in a story. There was a Rav that I don't think anyone here ever heard of, Rav David Strois Katz, and he got up and he made the bracha in the guise of a pasuk. Now, what his cheshbonos were, we'll never know. It's all speculation. Sam Sofer says whether it's the Machlokes Radbaz Magen Avram, others the Munkat Rebbe has his pshat. Halach l'maisa. Let's look at number 15. The Machzik Bracha. Who wrote the Machzik Bracha? If you don't know, you could guess. If you guess, you'll guess right.
You don't know either.
No? Who wrote the Machzik Bracha? The Chida. Very good. Right? If the Chida wrote the Machzik Bracha, HaGoimer Sefer Shechibur Chedush. Somebody who wrote a Sefer. L'shem Shamayim. And B'koshikein B'hadfas, when you print a Sefer Yevarech, you make a bracha, v'nirali di yivarech b'lo shem amachos. Look in halacha ches. Imolo l'gdula v'nesmana parnes oirav, a kiyotze. Someone who is given a position. Gam b'zeh nirali di yivarech b'lo shem amachos. You make a shechiyanu halacha l'maisa, without Shemo Malchus. Ki vadai chiyuv arami alei lahakar b'chazdei Hashem. You certainly have to recognize the kindness of Hashem, ulevarich b'shmai, and bless Hashem. So, halach l'mayis, according to the Chida, you make a bracha without Shemo Malchus. Comes the Kaf HaChaim. Kaf HaChaim says, Ma'ol l'gdul v'nesan Parshas Arav, Gam b'zeh nira di yivarech b'loi Shemo Malchus.
What?
Machzik bracha. He's quoting the Machzik bracha. V'yeu bat, says the Kaf HaChaim, in my opinion, what you should do is you take a new fruit. V'yei savach pri chadash. Take a new fruit. The lifter, Chumash goes by kaidem. So what you do is, if anyone becomes a rav or a new position, you take a pomegranate, you make a shachiyanu, and you should mechave in the new position. And the same thing is, if you're zoicha to move to Eretz Yisrael, you hear this? You make a shachiyanu, misafek, and if you want to pater yourself, you take a new fruit and you make a shachiyanu if you're zoicha to move to Eretz Yisrael.
But if you do that, but your real kavanah is, and you're not sure about your kavanah, isn't it a subterfuge to make the shechiyana under those cases?
We always do that.
Because you're doing the pomegranate.
No,
I always had a difficulty with that because it's a workaround.
Yeah, but you have to make the shechiyanu on the fruit. But you wouldn't have been eating. You wouldn't be interested in eating the fruit. And you can make a shechiyanu every day of the year.
Make it on Yontif, we're eating the fruit. We're eating the fruit. But here, you're
when you move to Eretz Yisrael, you also need to eat fruits.
What's more important, the fruit or the job? So
the job is more important. It's just technically speaking, you can't make a shachiyana on that.
How do you think the rabbits made used to
No, I think it's more humorously. He's saying every day he said Shalei Asani Aved. In other words, he's grateful that he doesn't have to be a rabbi.
Makes it congregation.
Okay.
But he wrote Sfarim.
Well, many Sfarim, yeah.
Why do you say that bracha? Why would he say it every day? He should say it once.
Every day he appreciated the fact that he wasn't a rabbi.
Well, you've been saying the brachas every morning for the same reason.
Yeah, but...
It was a joke.
Okay.
All right. Says the Yalkut Yosef. That's Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef. Misha Nivchar, I'll tell you something over. I once heard, I heard from Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef. He once asked, he was sitting there was an olam. He said, does anyone here know what siman Hilchos Dagim is in Shulchan Aruch, in Yeridea? So nobody knew. He said, Siman Pei Gimel. He said, don't think I know. It's obvious. Siman Pei Gimel. Rashi Teva is gefilte fish. Okay. So Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef says, Mi shenivchar lekuhunas rav v'av bezdin. Somebody who got a new job. Or mi shezacha b'kabalas tayar. Or any position. Let's say maybe you became the president of the shul. Or you became the president of your company. What should you do? Hanochin sheyubash beged chadash. Get a new suit. Or glima chadasha. Or get a new bekisha. Glima. And then you make a shachiyanu and you have in mind to pater the shachiyanu. And that is why, says Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef, and this is what he did. When he became Rishon LeZion, then on the day of his Hachtara, they put on a new glima, and they make a bracha of Shachiyanu b'Shemo Malchus, and they're mechavein to be yotzei the chiyuv of Haida. In the Sefer V'Zos HaBracha, so this bracha is a very authoritative Sefer on Hilchos Brachos. He brings down somebody who's nismana as a rav, you should make the bracha b'Lo Shemo Malchus. And he brings down in a footnote from a Mordechai Eliyahu that the minhag Yerushalayim is at the time of the Haftarah they put on a new beged and they make a bracha. So they asked Rav Tovia Weiss, the Gaivid of Yerushalayim, what did he do when he was appointed the head of the Eidah Charedis? So he said, what I did was I spoke out the Chasam Sofer. I spoke out the story of Reb David Stroiskat. And by giving that shiur, I had in mind with the shiur to pater myself on the bracha of Shachiyanu. Rabbi Glatstein.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.